Have you ever struggled with finishing drywall? You start off with high hopes of nice smooth walls, but in the end you end up being disappointed? Well, as soon as I finish screwing these last couple sheets off, we're ready to get started. So stick around.
Drywall hanger, this is the mudslinger, and I'm coming for you. If I ever catch up to you, you're gonna be in a lot of hurting. Take it from me, the mudslinger. Oh yeah. Say what? Say what?
So the purpose of drywall finishing is to get rid of any of these cracks, screws, and imperfections like this. So in this three-part series, we're going to take rough drywall and make it into a beautiful, smooth, finished surface. Now in traditional plastering, there is a backer board put on the wall. Just a different type of paper that coats the drywall, but in the end, the plaster coats the entire wall with a skim coat of plaster. In drywall finishing, we're only dealing with the joints and the seams and the ugly parts. Now plastering has advantages over drywall in the fact that it's one smooth, even finish that's hard to detect in sunlight. But due to the cost increase to plastering, drywall has really taken over the market, especially in the eastern part of the United States. I hear people say they don't build houses like they used to. Well, that's an argument for another time. But I want you to know, drywall has been around since the 1920s. I once did demolition in an old home, and on the back of the drywall, it was copyrighted 1927. It gave directions how to hang the drywall and how to finish it. So it's been around a long time, even though it hasn't caught on till the 1970s in the residential building industry. So here's our material. It's drywall joint compound. It comes in a bucket. It's already a somewhat liquid form. Now you can buy this in a powder form. You could buy it in a quick set form also. It'll set up in as quick as 20 minutes or 90 minutes. This stuff here is what we use on the bigger jobs. That quick set stuff is used for small jobs that you're in a big hurry to finish up. So when we tear open a bucket of mud, this is what it looks like. So they put it in here with a piece of plastic over it, just to keep it from drying out. You could pitch this. Now this is the stuff. Joint compound. It's water soluble, which means it doesn't set, it dries. Opposed to plaster and some of the other powdered forms of quick set formulas, that stuff just sets and the moisture becomes part of it. This stuff here, you need to wait till the moisture dries out of it. So there's a few hazards associated with this. Number one is the risk of silicosis with the dust whenever you're sanding it at a later time. I'm going to go over that then. So here are some of the ingredients in this joint compound. Limestone, plaster of Paris, perlite, mica, profilite, clay, water, and latex. That sounds like a pretty good recipe to me. Now it's pretty solid down in there. You don't want to scoop right out of here and start putting it on the wall. It's a little difficult to work with. Sometimes it starts to separate out a little bit. Sometimes the water will come to the top and it'll be more solid toward the bottom. Might even be a little bit lumpy. So what we're going to want to do is add a little bit of water to this and mix it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a mud mixer. We're going to put it right down in here. They do make a mud mixer that's on a a wooden handle. It looks like a big potato masher, and you can go up and down, and you can add a little bit more water. But I find that the one that goes onto the electric drill, and most professionals find this true also, that it's a time saver and it makes your mud more consistently fluid. So, make sure your handles are at 90 degrees. You want to drill with 2 handles on it because it's going to want to bite back at you. First thing we're going to do is never stand on top of the bucket. I see guys do this. It's a bad idea. Cradle the bucket with your feet. Make sure the drill's in forward. And just start mixing. Now for the first coat, we want to add water. I typically add water to all my mud, but much more so with the first coat. Because when we're taping, we're wanting this to come out rather easily out of the banjo or out of the pan that we're scooping out of. And when it dries, we want the moisture to dissipate from the mud, hence sucking the tape in deeper to the joint. Shake off the excess mud. Always have a bucket of cleaning water here. Set it down in there. And I always scrub off the mud that's on the top of that's above the water line in the bucket to keep it from drying. The rest of this, I just let it soak in the water. I'll be using that in the next couple hours to mix this bucket up again if I don't use the bucket up in that time.
98, 99, 100. Yeah! You know, this drywall mud stuff really pumps me up. Did you know that there's different types of drywall mud? This is all-purpose mud. Well, it's used for all purposes, from taping to filling corner bead to the finish coat. They make other muds too. They typically have a different color lid than black. One of the most popular of the other muds is lightweight mud. This weighs about 15 pounds per pail lighter. And when it dries, it only shrinks about 30% of what the other mud does. So, I better get back to it. Did you notice? No lightweight mud for this guy. 1, 2, 3.
I want you to understand something about expansion and contraction. It happens with every material. As it gets warmer, it gets bigger. As the temperature drops, the material becomes smaller because of contraction of the molecules. So, keeping that in mind, that happens with drywall also. When we have expansion and contraction between 2 different panels, the crack between the 2 is going to change in size. So to combat that, there's a paper tape that goes over top of the joints. A layer of mud is put down, the tape is pressed in, and then we do successive coats of mud over top of that. So what the paper tape does is it makes a bridge between the 2 surfaces and lets the mud ride across. So as you have expansion and contraction of the 2 surfaces of drywall, a crack won't develop. That's what the tape is for. And you have to put a piece of tape on every single crack, corner, or any large gaps that need to be covered up. So the idea is to put mud across the joint, put a piece of tape onto the joint, and then push out the excess mud. It's important to get the tape right over the joint. So I'll just take my knife, I'll mark a couple places, I'll find that crack in the drywall just to make sure that my tape will go over top. And if the mud's wet enough, the tape should stick. So we just touch it in a couple places and we push it out. I use a 6-inch knife for this. And I put the excess mud back into my pan. Now this is step one. This is what a properly taped joint would look like. The mud is smoothed off where there are no lumps or humps or bumps. You don't want any mud sticking out beyond the surface of the drywall. So if we want to speed things up with the taping process, there's several tools we can use, but on this job I'm going to use what's called a banjo. It consists of a box that holds mud and a tape dispenser. We put the tape into there. The tape runs through the mud. As we pull it out just like we're pulling out a piece of tape, and we stick it on the wall. So our tape is laid in the banjo, and we just fill this up with mud. When you do this, you want to make sure that the mud is on the bottom side of the tape. The tape has to run up and over because we want to get mud on the back side of the tape so when we stick it on. So my banjo's filled up and we're ready to start taping. I'm just going to pull it out until I get mud on the bottom of the tape. I'm going to tear this off and get rid of this piece because I never want dry tape on the drywall. If I get a dry space between the tape and the wall, it will always come out as a blister. I don't care how many coats of mud you put over top. You'll never get that out. You'll see a blister come through the wall. So this is how quickly this goes. Then we press it in with our knife. I like to always start from the middle and work both ways out. So our inside corners are going to be done the same way. I want to tell you about the tape, that it has a crease put into it already from the factory. The tape wants to naturally fold there. So all we're going to do is pull the tape out, touch it into the corner, and we'll come back with our knife and press it in real nice. Now when we bring joints together with our tape, I want you to remember that tape is cheap. It's about $4 for about 250 feet. This isn't a job of precision. It's a job of overlapping the tape. So don't cut the pieces exactly what you need and butt the ends. Overlap them a little bit. So when I'm in a big open room, I like to run around and get all the low stuff I can get when I'm taping. After that, I jump up on the scaffold and wheel myself around and hit the top corners and the ceiling. So when we go to cover the indents made by the nails and the screws, there's a technique for it. Now I've seen people get a little knife like this, little putty knife, and they go around and they get themselves a little bit of drywall compound. And they put it on, they go up and give it one of these. Then you go to the next one. And they go to the next one. And they wipe it off and they put a little bit on here. And they go like this. And they'll get it nice and smooth. Now I want you to realize there's probably about 40 screws in each sheet of drywall. So if you're taking 10 seconds for every screw, well, you do the math. That's a lot of time. So the quickest way to do this is to take your mud pan, your 6-inch knife. Let's load a little bit of mud on the front edge, about like that. I always like to just nip the corners off. And then we'll go over to our wall. So here's how the pros would do it. We turn our knife sideways like this, mud facing the wall, of course. We touch it on the screw and we drag sideways. So at this angle, this is what we're doing. We're keeping our hand out from the wall a little bit. We're laying the knife on there and we're just dragging it sideways over top of the line of screws. Notice there's a big hump on there. But when you're done, always wipe your knife off. Nice and clean, both sides. Drag it flat. And it's that simple. I'm doing complete lines of screws that quick. Now, if you have screws that aren't completely sunk, you need to set them deeper. Around here, we start our kids young. This is my grandson, Roman, who's helping me out today. You either take a hammer and tap them in, or a screwdriver. Both work very well. Thanks, Roman. So while our first coat of mud is drying overnight, I'm going to clean up my tools. I'll have to come back tomorrow. All I want to say about cleaning tools is, don't clean them in your sink. That mud will end up clogging up the traps. So you always want to do it in a bucket. Make sure everything is cleaned properly. Dry them off and spray them with some WD-40. That'll keep them from rusting. So today, we learned how to properly mix mud, tape all the joints, and put our first coat of mud over all of our screws. So join us tomorrow when we pick back up on this. So all I have left to do today is, well, I guess shave off his creepy mustache. Thanks for watching.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, what is this? The mudslinger's getting up on the top rope. He's gonna